Okay, so that song that we just listened to, it's by Shai Linne on an album called The Attributes of God, which was actually a book by A.W. Tozer. And so he basically took this theology book and he turned it into a rap album, which is interesting. But I started listening to that album right when I started getting into rap. And you guys have heard before, you know I was raised by Christians. My parents are small group leaders in our youth group, so hopefully you know that. And so I always had an intellectual understanding of God, and I was always taught about God, but you get older and then you kind of have aha moments. You get this deeper revelation, and for me this song was one of those, because I always heard that God was a jealous God, but I didn't really get it. It's not like I struggled with it or anything, I just never thought about it more deeply, and this kind of opened my eyes to that. David, you can go past the context line. Our slideshow's so jacked up. All right. So that's Shai Linne. And the thing is that as you grow older, all of you are raised in the church, you'll have moments like this. You'll have these aha moments. You'll come across different stuff, and you'll be taught deeper insight into things that you already know. But at the same time, you'll also reach a point where there are certain teachings, certain attributes of God, certain things that God commands that you don't like, that challenge you, that makes you just wonder, like, that just does not sound right. I was talking to one of my coworkers. I feel like I include my coworkers in every single one of my lessons now. But I was talking to her. She was raised Catholic, and she was talking to me why she stopped being a self-proclaimed Catholic. It was because she went to Stud High School, and they were required to read through the Bible and to journal the Bible. And so she was reading through the Old Testament, and she was seeing things that she had never seen before about wars and murder and God commanding confusing things, and it caused her to stop being Catholic. Well, it was one of the main contributing factors towards her stop believing in Catholicism. And I can relate to that, in that I definitely had those points where you're going through the Bible and you reach points and you're just like, that doesn't sound right. That makes God sound so bad. How can this be a loving God? And this trait of jealousy is actually one of the traits that causes a lot of people to turn away. I don't think anybody in this room, I don't know if any of you may have struggled hearing that God is jealous, but like, just for example, Oprah, I know she was a self-proclaimed Christian, and she said when she heard about the jealousy of God, that's what unraveled everything for her for Christianity, and she stopped being a self-proclaimed Christian, because jealousy, we understand it as a negative trait. It is bad to be jealous. You shouldn't be jealous. And so it kind of all unraveled for her. David, go ahead and go next slide. And so what we have here, though, is you need to understand Deuteronomy 4 is one of the first times, it also says it in Exodus, but Deuteronomy is one of the first times where it talks about God being a jealous God. And this is the passage, and it's important to understand the context around it. The Lord was angry with me because of you. Now remember, this is Moses writing to the Israelites. The Lord was angry with me because of you, and he solemnly swore that I would not cross the Jordan and enter the good land the Lord your God is giving you as your inheritance. I will die in this land. I will not cross the Jordan, but you are about to cross over and take possession of that good land. Be careful not to forget the covenant of the Lord your God that he made with you. Do not make for yourselves an idol in the form of anything the Lord your God has forbidden. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. Okay, so here's Moses giving direction to the Israelites. And he's reminding them of what they did wrong. And he's saying, you need to be careful to not follow idols. And he says this because he reminds them of actually a super moving thing of the covenant of the Lord your God. God made a covenant with the Israelites. I feel like I've pounded this nail to the point where the hammer's starting to ruin the wood. You know what I mean? What is a covenant? Who can define a covenant for me? Okay, so what a covenant is more loving than a contract, but it's more permanent than an emotion. So a marriage is a type of covenant. Because it's saying, I love you so much that I want to make it a law that I have to love you for the rest of my life. So a covenant, as I just said, it's more loving than a contract. It's more permanent than just a fleeting emotion. It is putting the law into ink. It is making love a law and final. And that's what God did from the beginning of time with Moses, with Abraham, with Noah, with the Israelites. He loved them so much that he made it a law, as permanent as a marriage. And so for the Israelites to hear this, it would be like someone coming to me and being like, remember your wedding day? You remember your wedding day with Laura? Yeah, you need to be faithful to her, because you're going to be tempted within the next however many years. You will face temptation, and you need to be loyal to Laura. That's basically what Moses is saying here. He's saying God made a covenant with you. He made his love to you permanent. Do not make idols for yourselves. Because God is a jealous God. And that is what Shai Lin, in that song we listened to, that's the parallel, that's the example that he gives. He talks about a man being angry because he found out that his wife is cheating on him. And he says, I can't think of much worse if I tried than a man that would smirk if you flirt with his bride. He's saying, what kind of married man would just be okay if his wife flirted with another man? He would be justified to be jealous for her because he loves her. And that's the jealousy of God. He loves you so much, he can't share you with anyone. He made a covenant with you. He made his love with you permanent. He made it final. It's not that God is just it's not like he's jealous of you, he's jealous for you. And that's where this attribute of God goes from being something that's like, oh man, he's exhibiting this terrible trait, to this attribute of God being actually really beautiful. And if Oprah would have understood this, as she should have, that he just wants her. He just wants relationship with her. That's what he's been doing since the beginning of time. We've gone through the first 5 books of the Bible at this point, and in every single verse, in every single book, he's clawing for a relationship with humanity. That's what he wants. And so of course he's going to be jealous for you. Of course he's not going to want you to have idols in your life. And that's where we understand that God is a jealous God. Now, in the bigger scope of things, we also then can learn that with proper context, difficult teachings about God, difficult personality traits, different commands that he has, there's good reason for them if we seek for the answer. David, can you go next slide? I think that might be okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Is it the last one?
Yeah, it's just
okay.
back.
And so what I want you guys to pull away from this is just a tiny example. Yes, we learned about an attribute of God, of how his jealousy is a good jealousy. But more applicable is the lesson that difficult teachings about God will become beautiful when we dig deeper into them. What I want you guys to pull away from this is, if you come across a difficult teaching, if you come across an attribute of God that you don't like, or if somebody, even a little bit outside of that, if you're talking to an atheist and you're starting to doubt the existence of God, please, I beg you, please ask questions. It is okay to doubt. It is okay to question. However, it is not okay to doubt and question if you're not going to seek the answer and just give up. Because really, that's what Oprah did. She saw the jealousy of God. She saw, oh, this verse says that God is jealous. I've given up on Christianity. Everything unraveled. If she would have looked deeper, if she would have sought answers, if she would have talked to other Christians, if she would have investigated, she would have seen that there are answers. There are good answers. And so for you guys, I don't care, as long as you live, if you come across something that you don't like, if you have a question about the existence of God, if you have anything of that sort, feel free to text me. I don't care if you graduate high school and you're in college, I don't care. Ask your small group leaders. Ask your pastor. Whoever it is. Seek an answer. They're not going to judge you for doubting, because everybody goes through times of doubting in their life. Everybody comes across those passages that are really hard to digest. There are good answers. All you have to do is ask. Ask your small group leaders, ask your pastor, ask your parents, ask your Christian friends, ask me. I don't care who it is. Always feel free, forever, always feel free to ask. I encourage you to ask. That's kind of what small groups are about. It's about coming into a place of community where it's safe. You can ask whatever you need to ask. You're supposed to be able to be open. And so we're going to go into small groups and we're going to discuss this more.